Okay, so let's begin on how to start a drawing. I'm going to do this into two different parts. The first part, I'm going to show how I draw if I'm looking at an image. No matter what it is, whether it be a face, a tree, anything, I'm going to show this. And then in the other videos, I'm going to show how I draw just from my mind. I take two different approaches. When I'm drawing an image from my memory, from my brain, I usually like to use shapes and things like that, and I'll get into that. But for now, when it comes to this, I'm going to show you my approach and how I draw like this. So let's get started. First off, before you start, I hope you please watch part one, because part one, it's all about getting in the mood to draw. So right now I'm kind of focused on this image. When I start a drawing, I look at the image before I even put my pencil down. I kind of just get an idea of what the image is and just kind of look at little points, such as I look here and I notice this eyebrow is lower than this one, that the face itself is kind of at an angle. And this is very important because when it comes to drawing by observing, I'm constantly checking points. Like this point for here almost lines up with that point. And from here, if you pretend there's a horizontal line there, just by your eye, you can tell that's raised. This, where it gets a little bit thicker, lines up with that. This eye, the pupil, lines up with that crease. The lip lines almost perfect with that. This is a little higher than that one. So basically what drawing is, it's a matter of observing, laying down points and lines and shapes, and ultimately you'll have this whole image form. That's my first tip with getting started. My second tip is do not worry about your paper size. In my opinion, draw on a huge piece of paper because you can crop it. You never want to have the paper too small that, say, if I'm drawing just the eye up and then I have no room for the nose and stuff. So when you're drawing, don't worry about that. So here's how I approach this. I usually will pick one point of this face. It can be any object. I like to start off with one point and work all around that point. Rather than, say, if I just did an outline. Some people do this, and it's fine if you do this. The point of this video is not to make you draw like me as much as it is just to show you a helpful way to draw. Because everybody's different. As long as you achieve an overall aesthetic image, then you're performing it. That's your job as an artist, to do it how you feel is right and express yourself. But see, I do not like to draw the outline and then mark where the eyes would be and stuff. I prefer to do this if I'm drawing from my memory. And the reason is because when I do that, I find myself that I'm truly not, I don't feel like I can capture the image as well if I start with the overall outline. So I like to do is I start with a point. So I'm going to take that right eyebrow. And I like to just sketch things very fast, very light, just so I get an overall form. So this is almost that right eyebrow. And then from this eyebrow right here, vertical, this little eye starts almost right there. So I put that point, and I like to just put these lines in. Get these overall shapes start to form. The eye ends almost right there. So the eye is going to end a little bit where that, a little bit in that eyebrow. And then the eye kind of sinks down like so. But if you observe here, it's never really, whoa, the eye, as it slopes down, it never goes below that point. And that's something to mention, because that means that point is a little lower. That point's going to be about right there. And so as it slopes down, you have this shape. So that's something to constantly observe while you're making all these shapes. So then that's how I get started. I start with this eyebrow, and then from there I can mark all the points. I can kind of say, just by eye. You know, this is darker, and I kind of do a very loose sketch. And the pupil, you can see the pupil, it almost lines up with the nose, and the nose is about as long from here to it is from there. So from this distance, you can tell by eye. At that distance, the nose is maybe about right there, and it lines up almost with the pupil. The nostril lines up almost with the pupil. You have this mark that's there. Then it's about from here to here. It's almost another eye length. So if you put that in your mind, this eye length, it's going to be about the same. And I like to do this. I like to just put light little marks just so I get the proportions right, just so I know where I'm drawing. And as you can see, this eye, using that same approach, horizontal, it's a little bit higher than this one. So if I just imagine the eye isn't going to sit there. If it's there, it's going to be level with that. The eye is a little bit lower, about right there. And I'll just put these little marks in, like so. It's all about just putting marks in without concerning yourself too much right now with value. Like, you don't have to worry about this nostril, doesn't have to be black yet. This is how I do it, and so far it's helped me a lot. And as you can see, this nostril, it's lined up with the eye, and that's what I did. I put a little mark there, and by looking down, it's almost lined up. So the eye, as I noticed, has to come in a little more, like so. And the bottom of this eye lines up with this little crease of fold. So this eye has a little fold, and it lines up with the bottom of this eye, and this eye has a fold that's lower than this one. So basically, the point is, what you want to do is you want to stay in that zone. Once you enter that R mode where you can observe things, you really just want to stay with it. And the best way that I feel that I can achieve that is by constantly working fast and just marking these outlines. Because as you can see, I'm starting to get a form here. You know, I'm starting to get the general face. So that's basically, that's my advice for doing a drawing by looking at anything. And I'm not going to take the time to finish this just because it would, on computer, it kills me. I'd rather draw it in pencil. But yeah, so constantly when you're drawing, just constantly look at these marks. Once again, this mark here, it's on the outside of the eye almost. And yet, you see this same mark, it's on the outside of the eye, yet it is lower than this nostril. So the mark will be about right here. And it kind of arches down at that angle. And before you know it, it's pretty awesome because you have this image forming, and you just have to trust your eyes. Never, when you're drawing by looking at something, never go at it and trust the way you think something looks. Like, never look at a lip and just assume, well, it's a lip, it's going to have to be like that. You know, never assume that. It has to look like the image. And so just, once again, look at all the shapes. I marked this because if you look at horizontal, it's a little lower. So basically, when you start drawing like this, it really does get into just marking points. Like, there's a point. You know, right here where the chin meets, comes down, but it's a little wider. Here's another point. So, you know, basically falls down under this idea that, like, here's a point for a crease. The line, this point hits the pupil right there. So there's another pupil and another crease. So just think of it like that. Think of it as if you're charting a map and you're constantly just rechecking the shapes, you're constantly checking the forms, and pretty much, you know, just keep marking your points, and before you know it, you'll have a basic image formed. And I'm sorry, I know this looks freaking horrible. I don't like drawing on the damn computer anymore. But yeah, it's just, I just want to show you the process I go through. So keep that in mind. So take your time, get in the zone before, don't worry about paper size, and just constantly be scanning. Like, This should happen almost unconsciously, like where you're looking at it and you're going, bam, that's a point, and you just think to yourself, that's a little higher, and that's the right side of your brain taking over. So now I'm going to show you a drawing that I did